Another month has disappeared and 2020 continues to feel like it's flying by at a snail's pace. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 6 September new releases that I saw from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of all the September new releases that you saw. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list and I would love to see yours. One more thing before we get started. Each month, I'm not able to review every new movie that I see on my main channel, but I do put some of those reviews over on either my Instagram page or my Patreon page. You can check those out at the link down below in the description, and let's get started. Coming in last place by a lot is Antebellum. This is a movie where I think something just went horribly wrong in the conception of this film. I understand what they were going for in attempting to tackle certain modern day issues as well as the history of the United States, and they kind of wanted to have this thriller that was also an allegory that kind of dives into certain themes that keep recurring all throughout American history. But this was not at all the way to do it. The direction that this film goes, when all the twists, turns, reveals are all played out, for me, got really, really gross. Because the movie, while touching on a bunch of important themes, didn't have enough to say about them to warrant its use in images of slavery, in which case the first 35 minutes of this film just felt like you're just watching people being dehumanized and tortured, and I don't feel like the next hour of the film justified what they did there, the images that they used. There wasn't enough to say. It had superficially the shell of a prestige film saying something important, but it was just hollow on the inside. And when you're doing that with such important and emotionally charged imagery, I think that that's a little bit gross and exploitive at a certain point in time. In fact, if you take what the actual plot of this movie is and remove its sense of self-importance and the themes that it's touching on, it's exploitive inherently in its nature, in its usage of slavery imagery to set up a third revenge escape act in the film. And I don't think I think we've moved beyond that type of storytelling. And so I did not enjoy this film at all. Number 5 is The Babysitter Killer Queen. This was the biggest disappointment of the month for me, as I thoroughly enjoyed the first Babysitter. I just thought it was such a pleasant surprise that kind of took McGee's juvenile energy and tied it to a story that fit for him to tell. And it took this concept about a babysitter and this boy that's a little bit too old to have a babysitter, incorporated with this story about this death cult that just made for a wild, fun horror comedy that had hit all the right notes. And the problem here is that this one hits all the beats and template of the first film while missing out on what the heart of the original was, which was the babysitter herself. That story about a boy that's a little bit too old to have a babysitter. That's what tied that one together and gave it its messaging, its coming of age story. So when you remove that, it just kind of feels like a hollow copy of the original one. It still has the energy. Some of the jokes still work, especially the stuff with Robbie Amell can be really funny. Some of the nasty gore I had a lot of fun with. But by the time you get to the end of it and it's kind of played all of its cards and you see where it's going and where it's taking the mythology, I left being really underwhelmed and not looking forward to another film in this franchise, which was a pretty big disappointment for me. Number 4, The Devil All the Time. Now, this is an interesting one for me because it wasn't really on my radar, except that I was aware there was a film coming out that had Spider-Man, the Winter Soldier, Batman, and Pennywise in it, as well as a whole bunch of other people as well. And but when I watched the trailer, it didn't seem like a movie that would immediately appeal to me. It was just a little bit too dire, dwelling too much in darkness, and just touching on some stuff about small town churches and pastors that just tend to not be movies that rub me the right way. But then once it came out, I received so many requests to watch and review this film. So finally, I did check it out with my wife last week, and my first instinct is right. It's a very well-made film in the sense that the acting is really good, the production design, the costumes. You feel like you're going 60, 70 years into the past where the story takes place. There's certain things about the narrative and the way it's constructed and how the stories eventually come together, which were engaging for me. But the one-note approach to it of it's just a constant series of punches to the gut. In each sequence, whenever it sets up a storyline, it eventually becomes very predictable where it's headed because it always leans into the worst possible outcome for the characters. It just keeps going so bad, and in doing so, becomes predictable at a certain point in time. And just beyond that, it kind of tackles small town religion. And if you know my background, I used to be a pastor at a local church. I'm still someone very active in my local church. And the movie presents all the Christians in its story as fools or psychos. There's nothing in between. There's there's not a positive example. It's just people that are being duped or people that are insane. Sometimes some mix of the both. And so that a lot of times stories like that, they just rub me the wrong way because it doesn't reflect my experience. Not that there aren't fools, not that there aren't psychos and con men in the mix, but this presents everyone in that negative of a light. And when you miss the other side to it, I think you alienate a certain group of people, and I would be one of the people alienated by it. So I didn't get anything out of it. I just felt like I was getting punched in the gut and in certain ways being insulted, so I didn't care for the film. Real quick before I give you my top 3, remember to share your ranking down below in the comment section. We've all seen different movies and we all have different lists. That's the fun part. Let me know your take down below and which movies did I miss that I need to check out. Also remember over on my Patreon page as well as my Instagram, I do cover some additional films over there with some exclusive videos. You can check out the links for those down below in the description. In third place is Console Wars. This is a documentary based off the book of the same name from the year 2014, telling the story about the struggle between Sega and Nintendo in the early 90s, where Nintendo had over 90% of the market in regards to console video games at the time, and Sega battled to try and take their place in the lead in the market. I absolutely loved the book. I got it on Audible about 3 years ago. Absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite books that I listened to that year. Fascinating story, told in a very vibrant fashion, kind of dramatizing it just the right way. And it's just an interesting piece of video game history that kind of let us know how did we get to be where we are today, even kind of how did PlayStation kind of sneak in and stuff like that. And the documentary does a pretty good job of summarizing what happened. Now, it's only 90 minutes long, so it is a pretty quick take on things. It doesn't have any time to kind of linger and let you fully understand the context of certain things. It moves pretty quickly through the different events, and it's also Sega heavy. It's telling this underdog story of Tom Kalinske coming in, taking over Sega of America, and their rise to fame through certain decisions they made in their marketing department. And so it very much is praising what they did to have that underdog story. But for me, I still really enjoyed it, even if it is only 90 minutes long, so it leaves some really interesting stuff is left out, and then it is one-sided. But for me, it was a fun time hearing this story. If you're interested in the full book, you can get the audiobook for free at audibletrial.com/Sean Chandler. Sign up for a free trial. You can listen to the book for free. I do highly recommend Console Wars. Link is down below. I loved the book. Our runner-up for the month is Mulan. Now, this is an interesting one because this movie just lit the internet on fire with a series of scandals from a variety of different directions. from just fans of the original being mad that they removed characters, changed certain details, certain plot lines, people that really didn't like certain tweets from the lead actress, and then as well as revelations about where they filmed the film and some stuff that kind of went on behind the scenes involving concentration camps, which is never a good phrase to come up when you're talking about the production of your film unless it's about the Holocaust. So I went into the movie without any kind of that baggage on my shoulders. I just watched it as someone that's mildly familiar with the original. I've seen it a few times before I watched this one. And then not knowing much about the scandals, I just heard some murmurs, but I hadn't read too much into it. And I enjoyed the film for what it was. That you get some gorgeous shots, some big sweeping epic battle sequences. I loved seeing Jason Scott Lee, Jet Li, showing up in the movie as well in a variety of different roles in the film. I didn't think it was as good as it could have been, but I thought it was a solid piece of entertainment, especially in this year where not a lot of films are coming out. It hit a lot of notes that I enjoyed. Now, after I watched it the first time, I did rewatch the original Mulan and then engaged in several online discussions with some people, and I think they brought up some really good points about the changes that they made to the character, and instead of her success coming through hard work, there's a little bit of like mystical elements to it where she's just magically better than other people. And that one, on reflection and kind of seeing other analysis, did make me go, okay, those are really valid criticisms. So I knocked it back a little bit from where I had it before. I still really enjoyed the film. If I watched it again, I would enjoy the film again. There's enough things in there that I enjoyed. And I'm reviewing the movie. I try to leave out the politics of the actors and things like that, because if I was rating Hollywood movies based off of the details of the people involved in the production, we'd have a lot of problems because the Weinstein Company has produced a lot of movies that are quite good. So I'm basing it off of the production itself, and I enjoyed the film, though I think there were some valid criticisms that I missed initially because I wasn't as familiar with the material. But coming in first place for me will be Enola Holmes, another movie that is based off of a series of books. If you want to check one of them out for free, that link is down below in the description to get a free trial of Audible. But this one is about Sherlock Holmes' younger sister. She is played by Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things, and Henry Cavill, Superman himself, plays Sherlock Holmes. And I just thought that this was a really nice, delightful little adventure. In fact, in the different conversations I've had with people, words like charming keeps coming up. It's just like light, breezy entertainment with an interesting kind of twist on Sherlock Holmes. It has the mystery and everything, but he's not the lead character. He has a strong presence, both in the sense that he shows up regularly throughout the story. He's a solid side character in the adventure, but more importantly, his reputation kind of saturates the film a little bit. People know the Holmes name from who he is, and then just the way that the Enola is played in the film. There's just this youthful naivety to her. She's very sheltered. She's discovering the world on this adventure. She's discovering boys. It's the first time she's been able to use her intellect on her own and kind of show herself as someone that has the skills that Sherlock has. And I think that was just a lot of fun. And even they kind of show her as being trained in fighting, but it's not like she's taking out grown men. She's able to not be just pummeled by a grown man because she's able to evade things, but she's not able to like punch a guy in the face and send him back 6 feet. So I appreciated the way they kind of were realistic about what a 16-year-old girl would actually be able to do against a grown man. There are a few things that frustrated me. It is #1 for the month, but that is because we are in the year 2020 where movies aren't really coming out right now, so the competition is much lower than it would normally be. And so I was frustrated a little bit with the movie. Kind of starts off with a story about Enola looking for a mother, and then it goes on this kind of mystery about this boy. And so the plots kind of spread out, and then it kind of ties back together in the end, and it has to quickly resolve the mother plot line. That could have been handled a little bit better. So it gets kind of preachy in its female empowerment messaging. The story itself, I think, does that. It is an empowering story about this girl on this adventure. That does the work and has the message itself right there. And there's a couple times where it gets preachy where actual characters are like directly saying things. Mycroft Holmes, Sherlock's brother, is written to be a total misogynist. It's pretty heavy-handed in some of these things. So that frustrated me a little bit. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the film in the way that it did something different with something familiar. So it comes in at number 1. If you want those extra videos, you can check them out. The link down below in the description on Instagram and Patreon. Likewise, if you want that free audiobook, the link is down below to get that free trial of Audible to check out either Console Wars or one of the Enola Holmes books. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.